Hey guys, I'm Mikey Swartz. You're watching Whip Bash. Today we're working on my 2005 Toyota Tacoma.
My hoop be rolling, tailpipe dragging, heat don't work and my girl keeps nagging.
I just pulled the whole cab off of this truck because we are preparing to put a 5.7 liter V8 out of a Tundra into it. However, before we do that, we got some frame rust to fix, and that's what this episode is going to be all about. This truck's rusted pretty bad, so I got Dustin here. He's going to cut all this rust out of the frame first. It would be a little easier to just cut a square shape, but we're not going to do that. That would give it straight edges and corners, which wouldn't be as strong. Plus, we'd have to cut out a lot more. So we're just going to let it be this weird shape, whatever we end up with, and we'll make a template for a patch panel. This, by the way, is chunks of dried up mud that we had to dig out of the frame. Much to my surprise, this is actually 2 layers of metal in here. So we're going to try to separate the 2 layers. Looks to me like this frame rusted from the inside out. So we're trying to push this inner layer away from the outer layer. And we're just going to take a chisel or something, get in there and tap it out to try to knock it away from the outer layer. This should be obvious, but if your truck doesn't have 2 layers of metal in there, you don't have to do this. All right, now that we got this second layer all split apart, we're gonna take the plasma cutter and blow this out of here. If you didn't have a plasma cutter, you wanna do this, you could use a torch or like a grinder or just bend that stuff in. It wouldn't really matter as long as you get it separated pretty good to get another piece of metal in behind it. We're gonna make a pattern and cut out a piece of metal just a little bigger than this hole. All right, we got our holes cut out now, and we cut some of that layer out from behind. We're gonna lay metal from the inside. We want it to fit flush up against. So we need to get some of our slag out of there. So to do that, I'm gonna take a grinder. I'm actually gonna flip the wheel over so we can fit it in like this and grind kind of backwards. Check it out. We got this pretty smoothed out now, and I'm just going to take a sheet of paper and stick over this hole, take my dirty hands and just rub over this, and that's going to make an outline, a pretty nice pattern. We're going to cut this out so we know where to cut our plate, and then we're going to cut the plate just about a 1/4 inch around the outside edge of this, just so we have a little bit to overhang in here. I just bought some 1/8 inch steel plate, 12 by 12 inches from the local surplus city. So I'm kind of limited with materials here, but I'm just going to let this side run off and I'll put a little patch in there. Doesn't have to be exact. I just want a little bit extra so when we put it inside the frame, it's going to overlap and I'll be able to weld it really nice then. We got our plate cut out now. What I want to do with this is put it inside the hole, but before I do that, I'm going to try to bend it a little bit because this frame actually makes a slight S-bend, kind of a outer bend here, inner bend here. So I'm going to lay this on here just to get an idea of how that's going to need shaped. I'm just going to hit it right here. I think I can get the bend, and it don't got to be perfect, but I want it to lay in there better than it is. Just to make this easier to handle, I'm just going to weld a little washer onto this so I have something to hold it by. And now I can hang on to that, slide it into the frame. I did bend this a little bit, but it's tough to get it to fit right. And then to really get it tight though, you can see there's a gap down in here. Well, lucky for me, on this frame, we got a slot right here and a hole right here. I could push through those holes with a pry bar. for example, and really push that tight up against. Dustin helped me with this side already. He pushed through the holes while I put a couple tacks on it, and you can see how tight it fits now. And then when we lay our next layer in here, it's going to take up this gap. Then we'll be able to grind it smooth. I'm going to go back to my pattern now and use this again. Fits pretty good in there. Now what we want to do is take like a 1/4 inch off of this the whole way around. And this is going to create an area that we can weld. I might have went a little overboard cutting a little more off of this than I wanted to, so I'll just stay a little wide when I cut it out. All right, I gotta be honest, I did some rough work, but you can see how this is gonna fit in here now. And what I'm gonna have to do though is bend this a little bit because this frame curves through here. I grinded these tacks a little bit just so they don't get in my way. It looks a little sloppy, but we're gonna push on it to get it in there where we want it. For now, I'm just gonna tack it like right here because it's in nice and tight at that spot. Make sure nothing's overlapping. Like I said, the gaps are pretty shitty. I just did a pretty nasty job, but we'll fill that all with weld. So it's not a big deal. But you can see how I'm pushing in on it here. So I'm gonna have Dustin push on this while I put some more tacks on it. Right there. So we got it all tacked into place now. If you look down across it, you can see how flush it is. Looking good. So now we just gotta fill this with weld and then we'll grind that all off. Since it's such a big patch, just to be safe, I'm gonna weld a little here and there instead of going around in a circle and risking to warp it. Just wanna fill that gap in like so. You don't wanna bulge it up too high because then you're gonna have to grind more off. Just try to keep it flush and you won't have much to grind at all. All right, we just finished welding. So as you can see, we got a nice smoothed out, well, okay, it's not that nice, but to make it look good, we're gonna go one more step and just grind this all smooth with a flapper disc. And then we're gonna end up throwing some paint on it. But the paint's gonna come last because, you know, this truck's getting a lot more work besides just this. If you're not watching the whole build on this truck, you wanna check it out. We're putting a 5.7 liter Tundra V8 in this thing. There's no turning back. That's the reason I pulled the cab in the first place. We're also gonna slide the whole cab back 4 inches, and we're putting trailing arms on with big king shocks. It's gonna be ridiculous, so stick around. All right guys, I got a finished product now. You can see it's all smooth, it's flush. There's no obvious patch panel or anything. You can see some pits if you look close. You can see some low spots in the welds here, but to me that's just cosmetic, and I'm all about function over fashion, so that doesn't really bother me. Plus, after that's painted, you barely even notice it. And I'm not really worried about those details because I gotta get this V8 in this truck, get the rear trailing arms put on, and get this cab put back down on it. Guys, if you like Toyota trucks, you'll love my channel. This is kind of an extreme build that I'm doing here with the Tundra V8 and the long travel suspension and everything. But I also have a 96 Tacoma that's a budget build. Check out the other videos on my channel and make sure you're subscribed. And please comment on the video and click that like button for me. Thanks.
I figured that would be a good spot to roll it, but it didn't work.